I used to travel a lot. I've been traveling more the last couple of years than I have for many years. And one of the things that is part of how I deal with life is I don't expect to get to my destination until I'm seated in the airplane seat on the airplane. So many things have gone wrong with delayed flights and tickets and on and on and on that I don't actually get excited or about any trip until I'm actually seated. So all the preparation that's gone up to my preparing the sermon this morning is just, there's no more PowerPoint slides I can make. There's no more text I can look up. I can't do any additional references. So we're just all together on this trip to the same destination today. Yes. So I titled this, I received inspiration about 2 weeks ago as I was driving to work. A Christmas Carol came on, and I thought, oh, this is the perfect Christmas Carol. Of course, I can't remember what it was. But it talked about how excited the people were to that Christ was born. And I thought about that how much anticipation Christ has now for waiting for us. Depending on how you read certain inspired texts, God has picked a date, or he's waiting for us to do things. Both of those are possible. But what is he waiting for? Do you think he's excited about ending all of this? I would think so. On the way into church, I mentioned this in Sabbath school, there was a dead deer and the vultures were gathered around and eating it. I can't wait. I'm in anticipation of never having to see something like that again. Well, just about a year ago, in fact, exactly a year ago, that's where I was. Actually, I was in the Mojave. So when you said it wrong, I was like, something's wrong with this. I mean, that's how it's pronounced when you look at the sign, but it isn't how it is. This is not actually the Mojave. This is the Vandenberg Space Force Base. And the buildings that you see on the left, I was in one of those buildings on the left. And the runway is 10 miles long. It's so long that if you stand on the end of it, you actually can't see the other end because of the curvature of the earth. It's a pretty amazing place. And as you can see, it's right there next to the Pacific Ocean, which on certain times of day and certain weather you can see. There's all sorts of creatures around, but that's not why. I was in the building at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. I was anticipating the flight of the experiments that I had created are being carried on a rocket ship. And as I was sitting in the building, there was a group of about 20 or 30 people, and they were glued to the monitors, and people had their headsets plugged in, and they were listening to all the flight details. Now, the rocket ship, it was called the Talon, and it's carried by the world's largest aircraft, and that was flying out over to the Pacific. And at one point, they said, oh, it's flying overhead. So everybody ran out of the building, looked up, and there you could see it, about the size of a pin, and you could take pictures of it, and okay, it's a white dot, pretty much, because it was flying at 30,000 feet. But it's a huge aircraft, and as it banked and turned, it would flash, and you could see it, and other times it would turn, and you couldn't see it. And then we all went back inside to monitor. So that large airplane went and did circuits to make sure everything was going to go. And we're all waiting there. We're all excited. We're going to, because this is important. And then we got the news. It wasn't going to go. So all that anticipation, all those people in that room, everybody excited, it didn't happen. So then everybody's in, oh, what do we do? How are we going to manage this? I got these experiments. Do I have to go? And pretty quickly they said, we're going to try in 3 days or 4 days later. So in 4 days later, a smaller group of people was in the room, and we're all waiting, and they said, oh, there it is, flying overhead. So well, we're going to take pictures of it flying overhead. And it got out, and it did its circuits, and they had another problem. So they flew back. So now it's like the 19th of December. Oh, no. We're going to go. We're going to go. So on the 22nd of December, now there's just like 6 people in the room. The 3 people from my company and 3 people from the Stratolunch Corporation. I mean, there just isn't that much energy anymore. People aren't as excited because, well, it's failed to land 2 other times. And we waited. Yes, it's out there. We walked out. Okay, I can see it between the palm trees. All right, we head back in. And then we waited, and then we waited. Okay, they dropped it. All right, now there's some excitement. And 15 minutes later, it's landed. I think we're kind of stuck in that third mode. We've been waiting for Jesus to come so long that the excitement isn't quite the same. There are people who were excited who've passed away, and there's a smaller group of people waiting for him to come. So when I think about anticipation, I think of all the things in the Bible. I was anticipating this, and I can't tell you details. I can tell you interesting things, but it really isn't germane to our discussion today. So in some other forum, you can ask me about how much interesting and fun that was. But in the Bible, we have all sorts of events tied to anticipating things. So the first Sabbath, I mean, can you imagine how excited God was? He has this beautiful garden, and everything is very good. I am not God, but if God were to say, this is very good, I would be pretty excited about that. And so on Sabbath, after creating everything, he gathers the first humans together, and he has a conversation with them. They get to talk, and they get to walk through the garden. And I would think the next Sabbath, when God is getting together with them, that there would be excitement. Now, we don't actually know when the fall occurred. Some say it was on Sunday, following Sabbath. Some say it was some other time. It doesn't matter, except that I would think the chance to talk to God would be pretty interesting. Do you have questions that you'd like to ask God? And in the fall, even in the fall, there's the fact that they had this promise. They promised Adam and Eve that somebody would come who would crush Satan's head. And so can you imagine them with their first child on the way? How excited Adam and Eve must have been. How carefully they watched. How diligently they prepared. And the second son, okay, he's nice too. But all of that energy, all of that anticipation that he was going to be the Savior was not the Savior. And how disappointed they must have been. And we have Noah preparing for the flood and anxiously preaching. Now, the clock up there says 9 o'clock, so I have about 2 hours and 40 minutes. No, but I mean, can you imagine preaching for 100 years? Every day you get up and preach and preach and preach and preach and preach. it's just, and then who responded? Just your relatives. Just your immediate family. And then the flood came and all the disaster that's associated with it. And how the people in the ark must have anticipated getting off the ark for the flood to end. And then it did. And for Abraham, leave your family. Okay, here we have being saved because your father was the preacher and builder. And now we have leave your family and go to a place that I will show you. Doesn't tell them where it is. And I'm not going to say that's very much like our trip to Alabama, but it's pretty close. We arrived here in 2 weeks before we were moving. We still hadn't figured out what house we were going to get. And then we finally put an offer on a house that we had never set foot in. So, and those of you who have seen my house understand what a blessing from God that was. We had looked and looked and looked. All right. But here, Abraham was promised a place and he wandered around and he eventually got there. But he didn't understand and he was unhappy and he was concerned because he had no children. And so he kind of took things into his own hands and they rushed. I've got a solution, right? I can solve this. It hasn't quite worked out. That wasn't God's solution. And we have suffered from those choices for the past thousands of years. But then a new baby comes. And what about Isaac? Can you imagine how excited Isaac was? Here, I know I'm getting a wife. Okay, it's one thing to walk into a house that you've never stepped foot into. Getting into a marriage where you've never seen the woman. Do you think he was a little bit anxious? And when he saw the camels and he discerned that it was his father's servant, I have no doubt that he was very anxious and anticipating getting to meet his wife and run out there. And she settled down with her people who made sure that everything went fine. The name escapes me for the moment there. What's that? Handmaids? The handmaids, yes, that's what they were. And now he gets to meet his wife. I can't imagine that he was disappointed. Interesting. And then we have Jacob, who worked for the woman that he loved for 7 years. That's a long time, isn't it? I mean, my mortgage is longer than that, but most other things that I anticipate are shorter than that. And then to be tricked, and then to work 7 more years. It's quite fascinating. What about anticipating slavery to end when you're in Egypt? You have, through circumstances of your predecessors, been enslaved by the Egyptians. And then you hear that Moses has come back and that they're going to get to leave. And there are a lot of other anticipatory events described in the Bible. But I think about the Babylonians, the Israelites in Babylon, and how they anticipated, how they wanted to get back, how they didn't want to be in this foreign land with these foreign gods, being asked to bow down to foreign statues. They really wanted to get home. And rebuilding the temple. They were very excited, even though their temple was not as beautiful as Solomon's temple. It was much simpler. And then finally, a whole section of the Old Testament deals with the anticipation of Christ being born. And that's where we have our text. For unto us a child is born, for unto us a son is given. This is written by Isaiah hundreds of years, right, before Christ is born. And he's writing this, and he's talking about Christ being born, and then he's talking about the kingdom of Christ is going to be established. And so now all of the Israelite and Jewish identity is built up into this Messiah who's coming. They've done the timing. They've looked at the calculations. They know that it's going to be soon. But here we have it. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulders. We will not be under the Romans anymore because the government is going to be on the Messiah's shoulders. And his name shall be Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Now, I can't say those without thinking of the Messiah, where that music pops into my head. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. How many of you are anticipating peace? Man, do I want peace. Think of all the people that are dying because there isn't peace. Whether it's in the world or in our cities or in Alabama. Right? And there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it, to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. An interesting phrase here. How many of you are excited about God's everlasting judgment? Well, that's what it says here. He established it with judgment. I've been to court, I've said this many times, as a witness, as the person who went over the speed limit, testifying in a divorce proceedings, testifying against people that mugged me. In none of those situations in court, for any of those situations, did I enjoy it. I have a hard time looking at justice and judgment and the judicial picture with anything but here Isaiah is writing as if this is a good thing. It's a good thing because it's perfect justice. It's perfect judgment. The judge is not going to make a biased, here's some money on the side type of decision. He will consider because he will know all the circumstances. But this is what they were looking for. They were anticipating this. They were excited about that. They wanted this to happen. This was going to occur. And yet, you can imagine the angels of heaven. They've been given a task, or they've been allowed to celebrate the birth of Christ, but they've been instructed, or they've been told, or their limitations are they have to find somebody who's looking for his birth. Christ is born, and the angels are looking around. Were they in Jerusalem? No. Were they in the city? No. Here are a group of shepherds. Now, shepherds were not the high society folks that we make them out to be today. If there was a Dirty Jobs episode for the shepherd and the shepherd's life, they would have fit on that. Maybe not slaves, but not really free, and they're gathered out watching over the sheep by night. They were not high-class people. They were poor. They were dirty. But yet these shepherds were out there talking about the coming Messiah. And the angels arrived, and the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, the glory of the Lord shone around about them, and they were very afraid. I have been in a situation where the helicopter spotlight landed on my vehicle. I was very uncomfortable in that situation. I'd done nothing wrong, but apparently my car looked like a car that they were looking for. I don't know. But they turned the light off and they went off to find the actual people. But this bright light landing on you is very disconcerting. And I think the word here, afraid, covers it. I would be afraid in that situation. And the angel said to them, fear not. So I'm afraid if somebody comes forward and is full of power and glory, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth is, don't be afraid. Because I have something to tell you that is the best news ever. And he didn't phrase it like that. That's a Burkitt translation. I bring you, don't be afraid. I bring you good tidings of, okay, joy. What was that? Great. It was great joy. And it'll be to all people. And their response was, what is it? And they said, fear not, for unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And the sign unto you, ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, laying in a manger. Now, my view of wealth has changed recently as one of my relatives is living an entirely different lifestyle, tells me about his business trips. And when he goes on his business trips, he stays at the Four Seasons Hotel for $10,000 a night for a week or more. And I come from Norwegian descent, and I think even if I could afford $10,000 a night, why would I spend $10,000? Well, because he has so much money, it doesn't matter. Can you imagine that? I kind of shake my head and go back and forth. But here, the most precious thing in the universe is in the it's not at the Four Seasons Hotel. It's not at the Hilton. It's not at the Super 8. It's at the dirty farm place in the back, in just a place where they put hay for the animals. I have animals. This was not a clean, sparkling place for the most precious thing to be born. And as soon as the angels were gone, the shepherds said, let's go into Bethlehem and see this thing which they were telling us about. And they made haste and came and found Mary and Joseph and the babe in the manger. And they made known to everybody what was happening to them. And I'd like for us to just kind of share in that joy for the moment and sing joy to the world. The Lord has come. Hymn 125.